ahead and call the meeting to order. And I will make the announcement that the attorney is running a few minutes behind. She had a meeting previous to this one, so getting over here and that one running long is going to take her a few minutes. But we could go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And so, Becky, if you want to go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I would appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am, certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Becky. I appreciate it. I do believe that we could go ahead and review tonight's agenda and go ahead and approve that if there's no. Hey, we just did the pledge. Welcome. You're fine. We just did the pledge.
I had Ashley emails.
So. Yep, so we just did the pledge and we are ready to move into it. I had already announced that you had indicated you were running a few minutes behind because your previous meeting running a little long. So take a breath. Okay. We're going to do approval of the agenda.
I move the approval of the agenda.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, do we have any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Okay, carries 4-0. Thank you. And then the next item of business that we can touch on real quick is the approval of the meeting minutes from September 3rd. Everybody received a copy of those and had a chance to review them. And if there's no changes or corrections to those, I could entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the minutes are approved, carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, have you caught your breath? Because we're gonna get into your part here in just a minute. So, under old business, we have an update about the website, and I believe we have it pulled up. So if you all can kind of turn your chairs around a little bit. I know it's a little awkward, but that way we can see where we're at with that. So.
Okay, so I have been giving Mary information to put on our website. We still are working towards the completion of it. It will be completed before we start early voting, but we changed, this was like a rotating screen, we changed this to where it's stationary. And then you have your check your vote registration, you have upcoming elections, voting precincts, Board of Elections, and campaign finance. We have added the elected officials tab. And here I have given Mary all of the elected officials that we have, and she has been nice enough to put the logos for each, which I think it really helps. Lets you know your elected officials for the county, for the judicial, and the Board of Education, and their terms, who they are and what their terms are. Also, the city of Jasper, the city of Nelson, and that should be talking about earlier. We'll have to fix that.
I'll make a note.
So I think that's really helpful. Then also you have for Congress, and I think that will help, especially anyone new that moves to the area. When they go to our website, they'll be able to see that, because that is a question that we get a lot, especially from people moving into the county.
It's not the Georgia Congress, the Georgia Legislature.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll change that.
Yeah, Georgia Legislature, yeah.
I wonder if anybody would expect you to have their phone numbers or how to reach them on there.
That could be something that we can add to it later on.
Maybe emails or something
Yeah,
would be.
But I don't have all of that information. For
And
each
I was
one of them.
wondering if not even like each individual, but at least like the phone number for City of Jasper or Town of Talking Rock, just so they could call like their clerk, maybe. I don't know. What do you?
Or a link.
Something like that maybe would be good. Yeah. So,
That's something that, we can add later on. Right now, we were just wanting to get the information of who the elected officials were, but
That's
we,
good.
we can definitely make changes to that.
yeah.
The other thing I wondered about, Stacy, if you, like on the terms, so, that makes it look like Chris's term is 6 years or something.
Well, that's what I sent her a note about it. I'm sorry if I'm not spoken, but I didn't know if we wanted to show where they started. But if we just put their terms now, and I didn't know because again.
Yeah, I think that we should do just their current term.
Okay.
And if it, if it's a 4 year or if it happened to be a 2, I think all of ours is 4 for local, so it would all be 4-year terms. But this was something that our office did not have. There was no backlog of elected officials. I ended up, whenever I first took the job, I spent a lot of time researching old newspaper articles, trying to figure out the 4 years prior to 2021 who elected officials were. So that way I could make a spreadsheet and share that spreadsheet with the county clerk in case something ever happened to me. The person coming after me would know what year each election is for the cities. So that's just information that I found and put into a spreadsheet of as far back as 4 years prior to 2021 when those people started, and I've kept the spreadsheet up of who previously had the seat and when the election was and who won the election, so who now currently holds the seat. And I share that every year with the county clerk, so that way somebody besides me has that information. But I just sent Mary my spreadsheet, and she just took information off of my spreadsheet. So we can definitely alter that before it goes live to make it just the current term. And then under more, we have, our bylaws are here that we just recently amended. And we'll put our voter challenge policy on there once it's approved. We have our minutes. I don't have all of my minutes to Mary yet. I just have this so far. But we will continue adding. I'm having to go back and put everything into a PDF before I send it to her. So we've gotten up to 2023 in a PDF, and then she'll get 2024 on there as soon as I can get those into a PDF. We've got a poll worker tab. If you want to be a poll worker, you've got information there. And then our application that she added, that will come directly to us. We've got information about open records, because I know a lot of people send me open records requests, but I am not the open records custodian for Pickens County. That is the county clerk. So this is the information. If somebody goes to our website and wants to know how to fill out an open records request, there's the information right there. We'll be able to have our results whenever we have it. That will be on here. I've got to get Mary the ad to go here and update it. I'll do that tomorrow about our LNA testing that will start next week. So she can list that on our website. And then of course we'll work on where we're going to put that form that we have to update online daily during the election. I'll work with her about where we want to place that for the public to see. But I would say in the next week, we should have it completely finished.
Well, they're never ever done. But I did embed you didn't go
To go live. It'll be finished enough to go live.
Yeah, like that. Well, that's what that website never. But I did put the sample ballots. I didn't know. I put them actually under with the dates and put the flower. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
'Cause I did
not
see.
that.
Yeah, I
How
don't
many
know.
dates?
So I did actually add a flyer.
there's
It's
the
really
flyer,
big,
our
and then
information.
but I still have it in text just for search engines, and then those are the
And
east
the
and west tickets.
sample ballots.
And I didn't know really exactly where to put it, but I guess as we put more election stuff like that, LNA, then maybe I'll make a whole page just
Okay.
about the election.
Yeah.
And then I did add the playlist. You didn't go. I added on the minutes and the board page.
Okay.
All the YouTube videos. So it's y'all's playlist that I keep on
And that's
for
on-
no Pickens. So
on
yeah, it's
minutes.
actually I have it at 2 places. Like I said, if you'll scroll to the bottom of the minutes.
That's awesome.
And I could actually, like with some people, I didn't know if you wanted by the minutes, we could put individual links to each. Oh yeah, sorry. But
From
anyway,
center, here's the heart.
Yeah, y'all better behave. I use pictures, but I could put links to each video besides, where they click
Next
on
to
that.
each.
Or I could put the date and then put like a PDF and then.
So
But with that, I'm limited like with icons and stuff, so I would have to like put probably text, or maybe I could put a legend that says video. I don't know, but I could play with that too.
A link to the library or something probably.
Yeah,
They
but
can
I
read
could
the
link to each
minutes
one.
and we could just have it say down below, you can see the video.
But like the playlist is all the videos, even before state. I mean, everyone I've ever videoed, so it'll go in reverse order, so the newest one comes up 1st.
Yeah, and probably just a link.
Yeah.
Is that
To
good
the
enough?
video.
So you don't need them to each.
Well, even like the
things.
newest one might be good, and then
Okay.
a link to the playlist of
Yeah.
it. Because we have the minutes, and then
Yeah, that's true, because people probably don't understand, because you can see it says 1 of 40, so there's 40 videos there.
Yeah,
And a lot
we
of
can-
people don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
we could do the latest one for that month, on here, and then do a link below for any other videos.
I think that would be good.
Okay.
And remind me, you have the link for them to go to the county clerk to file for an open records. On our website, on the county, it's going to link to this,
Yes.
correct?
So once this goes live,
Mhm.
we will have the county put the link to this on the county page
Okay.
for elections.
Okay.
So
So they can still have information about it on there, but then there'll be
Yeah,
a link to our
I
new
will still
website
provide
as well.
the county with copies of the sample ballots, copies of our notices to go on the county page. That way, the information will just be in more than one place for people to find.
Okay.
And then, so the information that needs to be put up with the, I guess it's totals every day or something? I mean, does that start with early voting?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's
And
all.
is that something you will be able to upload yourself, or?
And the start of it, Mary will do it when we're still working on the website, but we're gonna have it to where that would be something that I would be able to update. But just getting started, I'll get the information to her, and it just, she'll be able to get it done by the timeline that we have, that I believe it's 10 o'clock the next morning for the day before. So I'll get that information to her as quickly as I've got it, and then once everything is up and running the way that we need it to, then it's something that our office can just continue to do.
Yes, this is the first time I don't really know exactly how to position it, so it's probably better that I do it, and then we have a template from now on, so.
So out of curiosity, before going live, it's just a visual that we're looking at. We won't actually be able to click and play in like a non-private environment or anything like that, right? Nobody will have a link to it, before it goes to production.
Well, yeah, I mean, y'all could have that link,
Yeah,
yes.
this is the link to it right now. It's just not live yet for the public to be able to go and access
Which-
this information while we're building it.
Okay,
But I mean,
but it's a link where?
if the board wanted this link right here, I could email this link out to y'all.
But do you mind if we just?
So that'd be great, I'd love y'all to check typos and just,
Yeah, I mean, it just allows
'cause
us to
obviously,
click
I don't
and
know what
follow
happened to that
through.
document.
And sometimes you can click it and it'll take you to a crazy page that you didn't realize it was
So
there.
we can just be site testers.
No, that'd be great,
Back up.
the
Okay.
more eyes, the better, and then any other suggestions.
Okay, but if we do that, it doesn't modify anything, right?
No,
You're the only
y'all would have to
person
like,
that
I
has-
guess, send to Stacy so she could send me the changes.
Okay.
I guess would that be the best
We won't
way?
have editing permissions, that is what
No,
you're
that's
saying.
just a link.
That's
That's just like a
just-
backdoor link where it's not live. Anybody who has it, that link can pull it up.
Okay.
Okay.
But they can't do anything to it. It's just, it's just like the website. It's just a different, no one knows that URL, I guess,
Right, and do
The
we all
web
agree, I mean, it's private, it seems to me, until it goes public.
Until it
And so
goes
it shouldn't
live,
be
yes.
sent to other people or
No.
anything like that, that people who are not on the board.
So right now, it's just gonna be for the board only,
Right.
in
Yeah,
addition to staff and Mary. And that way, we can give them feedback on
If the
anything.
board, yes, if the board would like to test everything out just before we go live, but we will just need to make sure that we do go live before the 15th of October.
I mean, if you don't
So if you-
reply before the 15th, then you don't reply. You don't
Right.
reply,
But
right?
we can always change it to 16 too. Like I said, everything can always be fixed.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not gonna be 100% perfect. When we do go live, we'll still, be making changes to it. But we just wanna make sure that we've got as much information on here for voters as we possibly can, when we do go live.
Yeah, it's just, all it is more eyes looking at it to make sure there's no errors and somebody outside the public sees it, has to
Yes.
know, and
Yeah.
notifies
Yeah.
us. And we just see it in advance, that's all.
Yeah,
And is there
much
a
better.
way to test the election data that has to be posted daily? Can you like post some, I don't know, test information, I'll call it, so that we know that that link, or I don't know if it's a link, but whatever, so
It's
that
not
when
a
that
link.
data's input, that it's
But
correct?
it's just gonna be a box, so
So
it's not gonna
it'll
be
be
like another text
well,
box that you're gonna put.
It's actually just a form that I log in the information daily, and I would send it to you. I guess you would need it in a PDF.
Is it what you send us? That's what I said. This is is it just the numbers? Is what you send, or what is it?
Well,
new requirement.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
new requirement.
So that's what I said. I didn't know about this. But
And-
yeah, if you could send me, do you have a test of what it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I have the form in a digital copy,
Okay.
but you would need it in a PDF, would you not?
Was that, do you want it to put it as a PDF or do you want it to put it in text? You know, the thing about PDFs, they're just not mobile friendly, you know? I mean, I don't know what the form is, but I would think
I'll
it
send
would be
to
better to put
Yeah.
it, maybe both, the PDF and in writing, but again, I don't know what the form
I'll
is,
send
how
it
it
to you
details it is.
tomorrow.
Okay.
And let you look at it, and then you can tell me what it would look best
Okay.
going on the website end.
Yeah, I mean, I think this looks great, but I do think it's important that we know it's gonna work once we have that first day of early voting, because if it doesn't,
What do you?
then we might have more work for our
Just a
attorney.
total?
No, it's, it asks the hourly count, and then it also asks, about the total number of voters. The state just sent out a new one for it. It wants to know how many people voted by absentee
so it's
by
like
mail,
by
how many
each
people
type.
voted early in person, so the different types.
It's almost like an Excel spreadsheet, different
Yeah.
fields that you're filling out for each day.
Is exactly what it is. So I'll send that information to you tomorrow. And we can do it
And
just-
then
We can just do a test upload, even without the information in there, just the sheet if we need to.
So the
see what it-
sheet has to be, yeah, and I guess I'll look for any of the requirements about it, or you can send me that.
I can send it to you because I've got an email
Yeah.
about it. So, and I'll send the board out that link for y'all to be able to test it out.
All right, that sounds good. I think
That's right.
everything's looking really good. Thank you,
That's great.
Mary
Really
and Stacy, for working on that, getting it to this point, and I'm excited that we'll have it up by early voting. So, because I have seen in a lot of different places, people asking about early voting and what are the dates and what do we need to do, and so, you know, to be able to share a link to a website that has all the information for the public to know is going to be so useful.
And we also have some videos that
Oh,
Graham had
I'll grab those.
done previously for us.
Let me get
He
those.
was with the county. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. He has taken a job in the wonderful city of Athens with UGA, so I cannot be mad at him for that. But it is a loss for Pickens County because he was phenomenal at doing videos. But before he left, when we moved our office, he did a really nice video about us changing locations. And then we had him do a video about absentee ballots that we can actually add to this as well. That gives voters information about how to apply for an absentee ballot.
Is the county gonna replace him?
They've added his duties onto an existing employee. He was the public information officer. So one of our employees, she does a lot in the public already, but they've added that job along with hers, and I think she'll do really good at it as well.
All right. Okay, so we will get to test out the website. We'll get that website address from Stacy via email, and hopefully we are up and going. Thank you both again for all your efforts in getting that done. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda. Karen, are you ready? This is the SEB Rule Discussion. I did watch the September 20th meeting. It was painful, I'm not gonna lie. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. as some of you may be aware, and Karen will elaborate, I'm sure, there is pending litigation on a greater portion of these rules that got passed.
Yeah,
So,
and I was talking to Stacy earlier today. It is very hard to follow. I mean, they had like 16 hours of meeting or something. It was very hard to follow which rules were moving forward, which ones they were tabling, which ones they edited, and it isn't entirely clear if the versions on the website, because they said they had edited a bunch of them, if that was the actual rule. And until we get, like, this is for the other ones that were passed, like this is the official one that will come. We don't have that yet.
and my understanding is that there was a continuation from the 20th to Monday the 23rd,
Yes.
and that wasn't even on the link, like nobody knew how to even access that, like to
Karen-
watch the meeting. So I don't know if you had a chance, but
Karen had forwarded me the summary from Friday and Monday, so I included that for the board
Okay.
to read over the summary. And even though Jackie and I both tried to log in on Monday to watch, because Jenny and I were there in person on Friday, and then on Monday we were trying to log in and watch, but the Zoom or the YouTube link that they had, it would not let you access it. So we're really unclear about what they ended up going over on Monday. So Karen sent me this. It helps me a little bit, but we're hoping.
Yeah, I mean, I sent Stacy the last version of the biggest one was the hand count rule. I sent her the last version that I had of that, but I'm not positive that was the version that was passed. And I know there's some tension right now between the State Election Board and the Secretary of State about their website, because they've kind of now separated into two entities. So,
And we
we don't have the final, which is why we put the summary in here. The hand count one was obviously the biggest one. I know some of the changes, I think from the original proposed rule, is that if it's more than, like if any precinct has more than 750, they don't have to be counted at the precinct. They can be counted, they can be returned to the tabulation center and counted there, and can be counted the next day. So that was different than the original proposed rule. A lawsuit was filed yesterday to try and halt that rule.
and it technically doesn't go into effect until just days before.
Yes, so
If
it
it
doesn't even, it takes 20 days
Right.
after they pass it to go into effect, so, and they passed that one 23rd, so 20 days from September 23rd. So very close to the election. The Secretary of State put out something today, or was it Blink?
Yes,
Like,
there's a
today.
copy of that in your.
Yeah, that
binder.
said there's litigation, we're not going to really put any guidance out until we hear what happens. So yesterday, there was a court case that was challenging the first
One
three
that passed.
rules, especially the one about the certification or the reasonable inquiry into the election before you certify. So, or that was today.
Can you tell us which rather than just saying the first three rules, which rules?
No, sorry,
Yeah, that would be
the
helpful.
rules that have to do that redefined the definition of to certify the election that requires the.
They're not actually in the list. that we
No,
have.
sorry, I have copies.
No, that's what I
Yeah.
gave you back last month.
Yeah.
Right,
That was the ones that were passed in August.
Yes,
yeah.
and those are official, they're already added to the Secretary of State's rules, website, everything.
So when we did our SEB update last month, we went over these three that were passed in August, and then we also went over with you some of the ones that they were going to hear, and I provided you with that, what they heard during their September meeting. And then I believe they're
Yeah.
having another meeting coming up
Tuesday.
Tuesday, but it doesn't have anything to do with rules. It has to do, they're going back and picking up some of the slack from hearing cases that they haven't been hearing because of all of these petitions. So the one that's coming up is only going to be for the cases that they're, and luckily we're not involved in any of those cases, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, so the litigation that had a hearing today had to do with the rules passed in August.
And we have copies of those
These
from the
guys
previous.
with the
yes.
seal.
Yes, got it. A lawsuit was filed yesterday that is challenging at least one of the rules that was passed on September 20th. No hearings been set on that. And then there was also a hearing yesterday regarding the voting machines.
What's that, what's that specific to?
That is, well, they sued the Secretary of State over saying the voting machines were not secure and were asking to go to paper ballots. And so there was a hearing on that yesterday. There's no decision underneath that. That was in state court, or Superior Court, and then,
I watched that.
He said he was going to rule
Yeah.
Friday.
okay, yeah, he said he was gonna do something by the end of the week.
Right.
And then there was another one today with a Fulton County board member had sued the Fulton County board because she was saying she wasn't getting enough access to records to be able to certify the election. And because I had meetings this afternoon, I haven't had a chance to see how those went or what happened.
The hearing that you're mentioning, Ed had actually brought that up in an email, I believe. And was that a statewide, or is that just to, like, you said Secretary of State, or was it just a county?
No, Secretary of State and then, or
Okay.
the State Election Board.
Okay.
They were heard in Fulton because the Secretary of State, that's where he gets sued, is in Fulton County.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it referenced DeKalb because one of the main people in the suit
Plaintiffs,
was the
yeah.
head of the DeKalb
Okay.
GOP,
Okay.
who is a rather noted computer security expert.
Gotcha.
So
So,
that's her-
yeah, so
So it was-
yesterday's was DeKalb GOP were the plaintiffs against Secretary of
Okay.
State.
Against Secretary of State. Okay.
One of today's was the Democratic Party of Georgia plus some individual Democratic board members who were suing the state election board. And then the other case was the Fulton County, one of her Republican board members suing the Fulton board for access to records. And then,
But no
Yeah.
lawsuits suing all 159 counties, it's all, okay.
no, so it's basically against this, so the Attorney General represents the state, so, yeah, so part of it was against the state election board, the ones related to the rules, the Dominion, that named Secretary of State,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
And
so-
that one's the one that there'll be a decision on Friday, is that what you said, Ed?
I
Yes.
don't know about a decision.
No, not a
Well,
decision.
They, they
No.
made the Secretary of State made a motion essentially to dismiss it or direct a verdict. He said he would rule on that by the end of the week,
Right.
and if he denied it, they would move forward with additional evidence and stuff next week.
Okay,
Right.
so we're still in the hearing process,
And it's-
potentially, got
And
it.
it's
Karen
Judge
gets,
McAfee.
if Karen gets updates and sends to me, I will send out to the
Okay.
board,
Right.
about the progress of that.
Okay.
But it has to do with improper storage of the cryptographic keys in the
Yes,
Dominion.
yeah, it kind of went over my head a little bit. I mean, I kind of had it on in the background, I was trying to pay attention, but
I've
the
watched
computer stuff was
every
going over
minute
my
of
head, so.
it. It was very, very interesting.
Okay.
But it's nothing that's gonna affect our board directly unless a judge
Unless a
rules.
judge
Okay.
rules and tells
Okay.
Right.
the state
Okay.
to do something or
Okay.
not do
Right.
something or.
And even then, will there be time for relief? If relief is granted, will it be implemented?
Right.
This
Yeah,
is such a
because there's
short time.
always,
We're just shy of a month from election day, so there's not much time to do.
It's like, why now?
yeah, well, and there's, in federal court, there's sort of this doctrine, Purcell, of when you get too close to an election, you shouldn't change the
Right.
election rules.
And we did actually receive an email from Stacy too, requesting whether or not we should have you draft a resolution. So at least we went on record saying that these changes were too close to an election, and we didn't get to that point, obviously. And it is something for the board to consider going forward, I think. We just wouldn't make a deadline because of revisions and back and forth and everything.
Well, and I think, so, and part of the like state election board meeting that I did see, like I didn't see all 12 hours, like some of these rules or proposed rules, they didn't reject, but they did say, we think that one is too close to the election to really implement before. So there were at least 3 or 4, they were like, we need to think about that one more, and it's gonna take more preparation and setup, and it's too soon, so we'll
Right.
They tabled
Table
it, and some of them, they said, we wouldn't even have time to make this happen until after this election's over with, the first of the year, so we'll table this at a later date.
There was the one about the SD cards and making sure that they were uniform across every county instead of every county having to buy extras to be able to store data on it. It was, and there were some that I saw.
To the counties, like if we would be able to get funding from the state for the counties to be able to get those cards without the counties incurring the cost. There were several things that they wanted more answers to. They had questions about
like the mail, the tracking.
Yes.
and
Yes, the
questions
mail
about the
tracking was another one,
They were
yeah.
like,
the
we're gonna
cost to the
table that.
county because of it.
So.
But that was one thing, in the future going forward, if the board feels strongly enough, not that the board wouldn't agree with, one of the rules that are being heard, but if the board agrees that it's too close to the election to be making changes, I mean, if in federal court, if they say, we can't change anything 90 days out from an election and the board thinks that no changes should be made, the board doing a resolution is not going to change the SEB's mind about that, but at least it would be made public record that our board feels strongly about not making changes that could possibly affect the election that close. And it's something that we can think about going forward. I know there were several counties. The one I sent out to you, I believe, was Athens, Clark County. But when I was at the Capitol on Friday for the state election board meeting, Paulding County had done a resolution.
Muskogee.
There were several other ones that I had talked to that they had done it. Had we known ahead of time, it could have been something we could have got out in front of. But going into this meeting, with it being so close to the election, even if we had a draft, if we had to make any changes, we'd have to do a special called meeting to come back and approve it later on. So we're getting too close to the election to even, worry about it for this, but in the future, it's something for the board to consider.
Exactly. All right, so which ones, is there anyone in particular?
Okay, except for the counting one, all the others have to essentially do with putting information on the website. The reconciliation reports, the totals, the daily reporting, the poll watchers, making it makes clear that they can have access to where the tabulation is occurring.
And that's one thing we don't have to worry about because we give poll watchers, as much access as we possibly can. So it's really for the larger counties that have such a big space that they only are allowed 2 poll watchers, and 2 poll watchers trying to cover, such a big area. It gives them then the option to have more people or to be able to have a little bit more access. But with us, we pretty much can't give them any more access than we already do.
There was discussion about how many would actually fit in some of the smaller counties' buildings. Like you can't set a specific number of poll watchers because you may not, fire marshals are gonna come close the building down if you put in that many people too. So, setting a specific number was definitely, it was just about, I think, the best resolution to come up with is just saying give them access and not give a specific, so.
I went over this during poll worker training about poll watchers, and the parties can assign 2 poll watchers. The state can assign 2 poll watchers. If you have candidates, they can have 2 poll watchers.
Or one.
Candidates can have one. So, and then if it's not the Democratic Party or Republican Party, if it's
you have a
Libertarian or Green, they only get 1. So if you think about it, if you were a county as small as ours, and in each one of our polling locations you had the maximum number, there wouldn't be a whole lot of room to have voters. And we don't have to, we wouldn't have to worry about, I don't think we'll have to worry about that in Pickens County, but some of the larger counties might have that happen.
Yeah.
Well, a little kitchen talking rock pretty cool.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that was, everything is basically, other than the hand count
Other than the
thing.
hand count, it's essentially, she'll be putting stuff on the website.
Now, the hand count's still up here, right?
No, the hand count, they passed.
They passed, okay.
I don't,
But they've filed,
They haven't.
I'm not
sent it to the
positive I
seal
have
yet.
the final version.
yeah, we don't know if we have the final version,
But-
and now there's a lawsuit pending
There's
against
a
it.
lawsuit, I mean, I don't know that it'll get halted, but it essentially will be the 3 people, they're just counting. They're not tabulating, they're just
Right,
counting.
no
the number of
stacks, no
ballots.
nothing, just counting the pieces
And
of,
then
ballot
if you have
paper.
a precinct that has more than 700, and it's just election day, it is not
It's
for
not
advanced
really
voting.
right,
And then if you have more than 750, you
You can do
can
it.
go ahead and bring it back, because a lot of counties, you know, they're like, well, we wanna get started tabulating, but we don't have enough people to go ahead and run the memory cards while some people stay and count, and so.
We don't have that problem because our board members act as runners. I will tell you that whether it gets held up in court and a judge decides it's gonna be too late for me to go back and train my managers on this, if a judge decides to do it or not to do it. So when I have my manager training, I'm gonna train my managers. We're going forward as we're doing this. If we get told in the process we don't have to, we won't do it, but we're mapping out how to do it. And I only have 1 or 2 precincts that would be under that 750. I think it would just be best practice if one of my precincts are gonna do it, to train all of my poll workers to do it and do it that night. So that, we're just gonna do it that night if we're required to do it.
Okay, so what does that mean, Stace? So you would expect then that the ballots are gonna be hand counted at the individual
Well, I don't
precincts,
wanna
or bring
use-
them back to your office?
No, it would be at the precinct. I don't wanna use hand counting because that's the terminology that people think we're actually tabulating, and we're not tabulating. We are only counting the pieces of paper.
Right,
So
I understand that.
I'm going to have my managers, it has to be a manager, an assistant manager, and one other person. This is where it really comes into play that every precinct has a manager and 2 assistant managers, and I have been preaching to my managers for the last, I know definitely the last year, but at least the last 2 years. Train your assistant managers in what you're doing, because you never know if you're gonna wake up sick on election morning and you can't come in, or you're in the hospital. Train your assistants to do your job. So I will have my manager and one of my assistant managers and one other poll worker from the polling place taking those out. I am going to instruct them. Best practice is when they're taking them out. I want the manager being the one taking it out of the scanner. Turn it face down so you cannot read the ballot. And then when they're counting in 50s. They're not able to see anyone's selections. The manager counts out 50, hands it the stack to the next person. They count out 50, hands it to the third person. They count out 50. If all 3 of them get 50, 50 gets wrote down on a tally sheet. Then they do 50 more. That's in the
Yeah.
rule that it has to be done in increments of 50.
So, and is it Fayette County board member who brought the rule? I think it's Fayette County. That's what she said they have done in Fayette County, is one person will start, counts out 50. hands it to the next person who verifies that's 50,
Right.
hands it to the next person who verifies that's 50, and if someone doesn't get 50, they
You have a
recount
stack
that
of only
50.
50 that you can find the discrepancy in easily.
And then those get roped together like with a rubber band or something in stacks of 50?
So it will, I would suggest that they would take them in a stack of 50 here and take the next stack of 50 and turn it. That way everything is in one stack, because whenever they get it all finished and they tally everything up and everything adds up, then they'll take it and they'll put everything into the ballot bag that they return it to us in. And they have to keep those write-ins separate, so they'll have all the ballots, face down where you cannot see any of the information. They'll put it face down into the ballot carry case, and then the write-ins will go in a separate envelope on top of it. And then that will be sealed, and that's what the managers bring back to our office at the end of election night.
I think
so-
the fact that you're doing this in advance, whether it gets approved or not, as best practice, perfect.
And then I think that we've talked a little bit that the other assistant manager who's not involved will be in charge of all of the rest of
Yes,
the
because-
responsibilities for closing down the rest of the precinct.
We will be
So-
taking the manager away from their normal duty, because the
Mhm.
rule says, as quickly or as soon as polls close, you start doing this. The only issue that I have with that is the manager has to get that memory card ready for the board members to come by and pick up. So I will be instructing my managers, you do what's necessary to close down and get your numbers that you have to have, and then get the scanner ready for the board member to come and pick up that memory card. And while you're working on this, I don't want them to start this until the board members pick up the memory cards, because I don't want them
Counting
messing
in
with that
that.
memory card until the board members get there to transport it. But once they sign that memory card off with chain of custody to the board members, then they can start this process. But there's also still going to be close-up stuff to do, and that second assistant manager it'll be their responsibility to start finishing up this paperwork, because if not, I'm going to have poll workers there till 1, 2 o'clock the next morning, because
Can't do that.
however long it takes to count these and then turn around and finish up that paperwork. So it's really going to be a team effort to get this done. It's going to take all 3 of my assistant managers doing the job of the manager in order for this to go smoothly. So I've asked that the assistant managers come to training with the managers. If both of them can't make it, at least one of them. And I will give the instructions to the manager. And that's why I went into it a little bit during poll worker training, but I didn't want to stress all of the poll workers out with it, because it's really a detailed job for the manager to carry out. And I didn't want all the poll workers thinking we've got to be concerned about this.
So do you have a backup manager if a manager calls out?
The assistant manager would step
I
up.
mean, let's say both of them. Do
There's
you
a
have a backup?
there's a manager and 2 assistant managers at every polling
Two
location.
assistant managers. Okay.
Yeah, it's required by law to at least have 3 people at a polling location in order for the polling place to be open, and that's your manager and your 2 assistant managers. So hopefully we would not ever run into an instance where all 3 of them could not come in.
Lord mercy, bring in the sick bed. They're going to do counting right there. That's it. So.
Writing some kind of emergency motion for the judge.
The closest thing I would think that would possibly cause that to happen is if you had a husband and wife that was a manager and assistant manager, and they both got COVID or something along the lines of that. And let's just hope and pray that that does not happen.
We'll deploy Jenny to one of the precincts. We'll send you out there. No, I'm just-
You have to come in anyway. We will bring you oxygen.
I mean, I think that if it, heaven forbid, should happen, that we probably have to pull like an assistant from somewhere and name somebody else at one of the precincts and assist. Like there would be a way to make it happen. It just.
So we do have a plan. We're gonna execute the plan, as well as possible not ever being able to have a trial run with this. So,
Jenny, I'm so glad you're still here.
Me too.
Well, I mean, I guess just one suggestion I would have, and maybe I misunderstood your answer, but it's like when those 50 pages are counted, if they're then glopped back together again, and someone questions whether or not that count was correct, they would have to count everything all over again, whereas if they were left in bundles of 50 and somebody questioned it, then you might find a mistake in the very first bundle.
So-
Versus having to
so
count
the rule
everything
only
all
says
together.
that those 3 people are counting it. Nobody else has the authority to question it. I mean, I'm assuming that the poll watchers are gonna
Yeah,
be
poll
there
watchers can watch.
to watch. They can't touch the ballots, but they can watch this count. So as long as all 3 of them are getting the same number, then once they get to that 50, they're moving on to the next 50.
But is it one of the rules that's, I guess, been passed and I guess is being challenged is that board members can look at basically anything they want to look at before they certify the election? That's
I don't
really
believe
what
that.
I'm getting at.
But see, I don't think that the board members, they wouldn't be able to look at the physical ballots because they can see the ballot images, but I don't think
Yeah, they're sealed.
I don't think that they would be able to actually physically touch the ballots.
Do you think that's true, Karen?
Yeah, I think because they're considered sealed.
So we
Once
ran
they
it-
are literally getting into that sealed.
we ran into this back in 2022 with the lawsuit that we had. No one other than myself and my staff can touch those ballots without it being a,
Without getting a court
Well,
order.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just wondering because of this new
So,
rule, is that gonna
now-
upend all of that?
and now you can.
Not with the actual ballot. Now the ballot images.
Yeah, the
But it's
ballot
for everyone.
images
And
is
then-
one thing, like, I mean, we upload the ballot images to the state's website, so
Yeah.
any voter can even go
Yeah.
look at those.
Now the ballots, again, we touched again during the audit. And even like those rules are very, very specific. Like only one person is supposed to be able to check out the
Yes.
boxes of ballots.
The librarian.
And then there's the 2 people and if one has to get up to go to the bathroom, you have to get someone else. So
Well, we
there's
stopped
always 2 people
completely.
at a table, so like no one's ever left alone with ballots. And I am guessing, assuming, I think it will probably go similar to 2020 where the tally will be very close between Democrat and Republican, that I'm guessing it's probably gonna be another 100% audit. Because the closer between the 2 candidates, the more ballots you will have to audit. And I fully expect it will probably be another 100% ballot count.
I'm assuming that it's going to be as well, especially since it's the presidential race.
Yeah, and there's gonna be one more race,
Yeah.
which could be a lesser amount, but I think at least there will be one full audit. There may also be a recount, but those will be, the ballots then get removed and scanned back through.
And this was one of my issues with, I don't have a problem with us counting the paper. I wish the state election board would have taken this into consideration and if they're okay with, if you have more than 750 ballots, at that polling location doing it the next day, I wish they would have been okay with allowing the election staff to do it the next day for all of the precincts. Because we're required to have video surveillance on that drop box 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as it's open. And they want that footage, but we're allowing these polling places that do not have surveillance, we're allowing multiple people to touch these ballots when there is no surveillance on it. If somebody were to accidentally knock their bottle of water over and it get on the ballots, that would be a problem. Or if for some reason.
Good idea, tell them no.
Liquid stay in the kitchen area, yeah.
Or if,
Sweep the floor, whatever, yeah.
if when you got multiple people's hands touching this, if they're going to put the ballots into the ballot container that gets sealed and returned back to us, for some reason, if they knocked, a stack off and one went under, what happens when that night all of our hourly numbers for the BMD, for the scanner, for the poll pads, they all match up every hour. When we pull them out and we do the counting the pieces of paper, counting the ballots, those all match up. If something doesn't get put back in when they seal that up and we go to do our audit and we pull it out and we do our count and they're not all there, what do we do then? That is my issue.
What happened to that ballot?
With it.
Right. Well, and I
Be the devil's
just,
advocate to that, that's the purpose of
Of
it.
having three, or that's the
I
purpose
mean,
of having three.
that's why you're doing it.
It is, but I really wish
But
that.
I understand
Yeah.
that it's work and it's labor and it's time, I get it. But the purpose of it is exactly what you just stated.
And I hear what you're saying, Rick, but after watching all of the SEB hearings that I watched, they were so hyped about security this, security this, security this. This is not a secure type situation, I think is all Stacey's trying to say, and I kind of agree with her. You have the polling precincts, and at the end of the night, you've got a deputy in there because they're waiting to know if they have to escort. You still have your poll workers, you have outside factor that could influence if you got every piece of paper in there and back to the,
It's not a security issue, Jackie, it's an integrity issue. The number of ballots that you're counting and the number that you're actually not tabulating, but just counting, compared it to the total. That's what you're looking at, not security.
No, the security issue is where the ballots are being out without being secured and put away and then counted under a security, like camera and everything like that is what I'm talking about.
And if we did it in our office, like if my staff did it the very next day in our office, and we did it underneath the camera, we would have that footage to show that if there was ever a question like Terry brought up, what if somebody comes back and says, well, I don't think, I'm watching you and I don't think you counted that one ballot. At least if we had it under the camera, we would have the footage to go back and show, and to say we properly put it up or we properly, put it back in its container and sealed it, because when we do our audit, that's one of the things. It comes out with a seal, we got the seal number recorded, we open it, and then we put it back and we put a seal number and record it. And we will still have the seal numbers recorded with it being done that night. But I just wish, and we can't put a camera in every single one of the precincts. I just wish it was under a camera so that way we could sit there and I could monitor and see it happening in all 12 precincts. But I can't be in 12 locations at once and I have to be at the office. I would just feel more comfortable if the staff was able to do it, underneath, our surveillance or whatever surveillance. But I do understand the importance of it. I just wish they would have reconsidered a little bit.
And part of this is gonna be a test, I think, so it could be very well, after they do this, they realize this worked, this didn't work, this was, or.
And have the manager take her phone, take their
You can't have
phone.
your
and-
phone
Yeah.
out.
Phones out.
Oh, you can't?
No, ma'am,
No.
it's a
Oh,
law.
that's right,
So,
Well,
But I like the way you think.
One of the things, and they do it in other states, and I would not be surprised if it doesn't end up going this way in the future, is I know with audits, in a lot of states, they're requiring you to video it live. So it could be down the road that they're lining this up to, have that happen. I don't know. I don't know, what they're thinking is behind all of it, but
Some counties did do their audits live, like was it Clayton or one of them down south? It's like, here's our web link, everyone watch the audit live.
Mary, what are you doing on the 14th?
well, and I mean, we have the cameras in the office, but even when we did the audit here, there's cameras all around this room too. So I get, like I say, it's not about integrity. I understand what you're saying. It's about the security of knowing that nothing happens to a ballot after they're counted, and that they get from here to here and with whatever's going on in between.
And
So.
I want to make it clear, though, I have the utmost confidence in all of my poll workers and my managers to get this done properly. It's just, I try to think, of scenarios of things that could happen to try to get out in front of it. And it not happen to us.
Well, we should look at the totals at each precinct. Have you looked at how much time we're talking about? Have you calculated or tabulated any approximation about the time? No? Which might be interesting, we're only talking about the day of election, right? So I don't know what that percentage is.
And I will say this, I did not agree with the statement that was made at the state election board because they were comparing us to larger counties who had 50 to 60 polling locations. And they're like, we've looked at and compared these counties, and most of them don't even have more than 200 or 300 people come to that polling location. But if you've got 200 or 300 people at 56 polling locations versus our 12, and we've got, Yellow Creek that has over 4,000 registered voters. Now, I know they won't all show up on election day. Probably half of them won't even show up. But that one precinct's going to have to count, probably 1,500 plus ballots that night. I don't know how long that would take because we've not, done a study on it. It's something that if our office finishes, LNA testing and everything else that we've got to get done before
Do a little time
early voting
test.
starts, we could do a time test. Might even be something that it would take a little bit of extra time, but we could even possibly do it during the day or possibly at our manager's training. It might be an exercise that I do with my managers and don't give them 1,000 pieces of paper to count, but just say, let's just time this and see how long it takes you to do 50.
Do 250, that way you can approximate, the 2,000.
It's something that we'll definitely look into and then times that by however many ballots we think we might have. But there's so many different factors because you don't know how many people's going to show up.
But I mean, if you
we
took
can at
50,
least have an idea.
you counted out 50, how long 50 will take you, multiply it times 3, and then you multiply that times what your approximate is in your, number of votes, and then you add a fudge factor to it. That's what you're looking at approximately at that location.
Because the longer,
That's gonna be the one location,
because the
Yellow
longer they
Creek's-
count, the more tired they're gonna be.
Well, I understand, I said you add a fudge factor to it.
Yeah, and it's at
This
the
is what
end
about
goes
what it's gonna
down.
be, 30 minutes. So you're gonna add 30
And I
minutes to their
think,
night.
thank you for that suggestion because I think that might be something that I do with my poll managers when we have our poll manager training, just to even kind of give them an idea about, hey, this is what I'm expecting you to do. This is our trial run. And, we're gonna do it right here in front of all of us so that way, we all know what to expect and what we're gonna be doing and kind of give us a guesstimate of how long it's gonna be.
I was gonna say, we don't want them to use the sticky stuff
Not the
either. They
sticky
need
stuff.
the,
Like
they need the,
Paper cup.
yeah,
Is it-
that's it.
It's not a thimble, but what is it?
Well, you had,
Yes.
when you did the
So
audit, you've got
why
all
would we not
that.
want them to use?
I don't know
sticky
if do you want them using the
Well,
sticky
then the
stuff?
sticky stuff will be getting on.
Because it has to go through the scanner still.
stuff? No,
The image-
these are the ones that's
the
already
ones-
been through the scan.
Okay, so we're
And
good.
the image is already captured, and
Okay.
we use the sticky stuff whenever we do our audit.
But
It
after
doesn't
the audit,
leave a
usually they get,
residue.
okay.
Okay, it doesn't
As long
leave-
as
I
it
was
doesn't leave a
just thinking
residue, good,
No,
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
if they got a bunch of it on there and then they touch the ballot, it might leave like a little greasy spot.
Okay,
But if they just barely put a little bit on and rub their fingers together first and then start counting, then.
okay. All right.
And I mean, one of the things I will just, demonstrate this for the board, if they've got, the ballots face down where you can't see it, I mean, I don't want them turning over and going 1, 2. What I'm wanting them to do is I'm wanting them to take and count 50 up in the corner.
Uh-huh.
So I do believe that they need the rubber fingers
They'll
and
need
the
rubber
sticky
fingers, yeah.
tack because I've got some people that do the audit that prefer the sticky tack. I've got some of them that prefer the rubber fingers. I'm going to provide both to the managers and let them use whichever
Okay.
that they would like.
Okay.
So Stacy, you can, count out 100 and give me your time, it'll take you 9 minutes. So if you took it 9 minutes for 100, you got 1,500 people, that's 15 times 9, that's about your approximate time, so they can do it. A ballpark, just so you kind of know what the night's looking like. Just give them an idea of what they're facing.
Well, my biggest concern out of all of that though is, I agree with you on the security issue, but it's that we're asking these poll workers who've been there since 5:30 in the morning. And we're not talking about people who are, 18 years old. Most of our poll workers are older people. And I know when I get there to pick up the SD card, I mean, they are ready to go home. They are tired, they've been there what is that, 15 hours, 16 hours? And now we expect them to, I mean, it's meticulous, I think, to count out 50 pieces of paper over and over and over again. I mean, for me personally, it'd be one thing to do it at 8:00 a.m. versus a whole nother thing to do it at 8:00 p.m. So I appreciate what you're saying about a time study and all of that, but I just think, I mean, I just say to myself, has a single one of the people on the state elections board ever worked in a polling place during an election to see what it is actually about? And I don't know for sure, but I suspect the answer is no.
And I will tell you, the first part of that meeting that Friday, they allowed, I wanna say it was close to 30 people to speak during public comments for the first half, and then everybody else that was signed up to speak for public comments spoke at the last half. There were probably 2 to 3 people that got up and spoke for this rule to pass. You had election officials, my counterparts in other counties. You had the ACGL's attorney. You had Republican legislators get up and speak about it. We had the Attorney General had released a statement to the state election board, all speaking against voting for this rule. And some of them had reasons that, you know, they were concerned about the hours that the poll workers are being there and then being tired and them counting. Some of it was, you know, we're too close to an election to implement changes like this. I think all of them had very good points, but then you also had people like the petitioner that said, you know, we've been doing this in our county for years. It doesn't take that long. I'm sure it doesn't when it's something that you're used to.
Yeah.
This is something we're implementing on the fly. This is something our poll workers are not used to. It's something they're going to be nervous about doing because they've never done it before. You know, they're going to want to make sure they're doing a good job. They're going to want to make sure they're doing everything correctly. And they're going to have poll watchers that's got questions. They might have not even just poll watchers. They might have
News media.
well,
I mean, it's got a lot of
they
attention.
could have news. They could even have you know, just a monitor come in and want to watch it. And you know, they're not trained enough because it's something that we're implementing on the fly to answer questions, which I will tell my poll managers, any questions that the media would have, any questions that a poll watcher or even a monitor that came in and just wanted to view, direct them to me at the office, because I don't want to put more on my managers, you know, than necessarily having to with what they're already you know, taking on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I like the plan. I think it'll be good to go ahead and give them the outline of how the day is gonna flow for them. And we're just gonna have to see what happens, and hopefully it all goes as smooth as possible, obviously. So, and if there are any changes, obviously Karen will keep us informed, and we'll go from there with whatever we need to do. But election day's coming, people.
Yes, it-
So,
We're
All right.
at 34 days? Or
Yeah.
is it
yeah,
37? No. 34.
today's October 1st, so 34, yeah. Anything else on the SEB rules from your point, ladies over there, anything?
I don't think there's any more to be considered before the election, so.
Well, I saw that there was another one that was passed on the 23rd. Do you know which one?
Well, if you look on the 23rd, there were one or two petitions that they.
Well, it went to rulemaking.
Yeah.
So will it
So,
come out of
one.
rulemaking in time?
Ooh.
It could it not?
Well,
No, I don't think
it's
it's gonna be posted for 30 days.
It has to be
Okay.
posted for 30 days, and then even if they adopt it, it doesn't go into effect until
24
21 days,
days.
so I don't think it will.
So there's
Total
nothing
is
else?
50 days.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
It's not gonna make
It's not gonna make
this
it, okay.
election.
Yeah.
All right, that was just my last question. If there was anything that happened on the 23rd that could make it, so we're gonna say, okay.
We're hoping that's all the changes. Now, they could do an emergency, hearing to push something through, and I hope
Yeah,
that
but
doesn't
I don't think
happen.
so, and actually, they've made it much harder to do an emergency rule,
Okay.
because I know there was a lot of pushback after COVID and emergency rules during COVID, so the legislature changed it, so it's much, much harder to pass through.
Well, after hearing there was the meeting moved up, or an additional added, I should say, onto the 8th, I thought, are they trying to push one more thing through?
No, and actually, I saw the agenda, and it's
Just
some of
Okay.
those cases are 2018, 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think they're trying to get through their backlog.
That's
Okay.
what they said at the meeting.
okay. All right, very good. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, voter challenge policy. I believe this is 3.0, is that correct?
Yeah.
So,
2.0.
to 3.0, I don't know, but anyway,
All right, so we got red line changes from the last one that you had. So some of the clarifications I added, which was based on feedback, was clarifying that poll managers and poll workers are not authorized to accept voter challenges. They can't be delivered to polling locations. That's not gonna be considered as received. Clarifying, you need to have evidence for each, voter. You have to have individual evidence for each voter, and then the challenges based on general information or compiled from databases shall be denied, and that's sort of following to some of the Secretary of State guidance that, especially when you're close to an election, but they have their own processes that they work through with databases, and when you use those bulk databases, you may not be getting exact matches, because a lot of times, like seniors and juniors and people with similar names and numbers, so they have said with these voter challenges, you need to have basically evidence, for each one or something that shows it. Added that for voter challenges, you're not the ones doing research. I mean, the board has their own method with confirmation notices, and you actually in another statute, 228, I think, have a way that you can challenge voters and all that, but these particular, it's the challenger who's bringing their research that they did to you to review. I did put in there, and this was codified in the law, that national, change of address data is not enough. I put in that if someone did submit it, it would be considered an incomplete challenge, so that Stacy could dismiss it, or tell them, you gotta give us more information or something before, we can, because especially if they're submitting it and it's not complete, or it's using something that the law says you can't use, but if Stacy has to put out notices and stuff, even though we know it's gonna get dismissed because it's not enough, I think it's easier on the front end to say this, it can't be based just on like national change of address
Are you
data.
talking about paragraph 8 here?
Yes, so that will just be deemed like an incomplete application, or incomplete challenge.
In our training with the Secretary of State, that was one of the things that they pointed out, was that a challenge couldn't be brought forth just based on NCOA.
So I added in the information with the National Voter Registration Act that it's the way the act is worded, that you can't systematically remove names within 90 days of an election, which is part of the reason you can't do the confirmation notices and stuff like that within the 90 days. And then also that it's not a prohibition on removing people from the rolls, but it needs to, it's like the closer you get to the election, the more certain or individualized information that you have, like it's an obituary or something, in that if you start getting these, where they are, the mass, spreadsheets and stuff like that, where you can't, well, we need to go through each of these, we're so close to the election, we really need to go through each of these, we can't look at 10,000 names. That would be kind of a systematic thing, like they do with the ERIC or whatever, where they get, a list of 3,000 names in Pickens County, people that may have moved, and then you send them the notices, and so like that's considered like a systematic thing, so that clarifies that.
Either dismissed or postponed. Is there any guideline for which is dismissed and which is postponed? Or you just say it's,
I think that would be, you can't hear it within the 90 days.
Yeah.
Or, I think that could be up to the board to decide whether, some people actually may even just withdraw it, especially if they're doing a 230, it's just challenging the person to the upcoming election. They may be like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
The next election's 2 years away.
Yeah.
I did add, that was one of the suggestions, the non-discriminatory review. I have never seen this, but let's say someone submitted a list and it was everyone with a Hispanic name or something like that. It could happen, or they submitted something only for a neighborhood that had, a high minority population or something like that, before you feel like,
So is there any guidelines for the board, if there is a challenge, which we've not had, and is presented to the board, what do we do? Do we vote on it that night? Do we have any type of time to do research, or is research necessary?
so,
How does that work?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
okay, this is an area I really want the state election board to adopt rules and regulations, and they haven't. So unfortunately, there is a lot of variety between counties and how they review these. For example, Cobb County, they put in their policy that they don't bother looking at challenges if it's an inactive voter, because they're like, well, they're gonna roll off the list after 2 election cycles, we're not gonna do it. But, our position too is so there is general list maintenance that y'all can do as a board and, 228 and everything else. But when someone is bringing a challenge to you, you are at that point sort of the judge. So you should be evaluating what evidence they give you. Not like, so a judge doesn't, they may analyze the law and you may look at it in relation to the law or have a question about the law. But as far as like the actual evidence submitted, like judges aren't gonna go back and start digging up and doing more investigation. And so we recommend that. And if they disagree with the board, they can appeal it to the Superior Court. So
So
that's why
in
I
theory,
think-
somebody's gonna bring a voter challenge and they're going to provide all the information that they have about why they are challenging this voter being registered here in Pickens County. And we should base what we do off of what we are presented with, solely that information, and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, and I think about it like this is one bucket of keeping the rules, as I don't want to say clean. They're never ever going to be clean with people always going. Like it's one bucket. There's other mechanisms. The board, board can bring their own challenges or own hearings under 228. Stacy's always probably getting notices of obituaries and felons and, or someone may bring, or you may research on your own and find, hey, this is a UPS store, not an actual residence, and that could be something that you look at and bring forward. But for this particular bucket, you're kind of acting as the judge.
So 229 and 230, the board pretty much acts in the same capacity as a vote review panel does for provisionals. The challenger would bring forth the information to the board. It's not up to my staff to look up that information for them. They have to bring whatever information they have, present it to the board during the hearing, and the board gets to make the decision to either take that person off of the rolls based on the information that was provided to the board by whatever challenge 229 or 230 that challenger, is presenting, or they can say, we don't have enough information, this voter is gonna stay on the rolls. We have to send out notification to anyone that's being challenged, as well as the challenger about when the hearings are. But it's not something that the board actually has to go and do any research themselves on. They only will look at the information that's presented to them by the challenger.
I guess the questions are we allowed to ask questions if the challenge is there?
Yeah.
We can ask them questions as opposed to somebody in public coming to us like tonight, we wouldn't answer any questions and respond back and forth. We take them to consider and get back with you.
Yeah, no, you can, and ask questions, and
Okay.
you can postpone though for, like I've seen postpone it because maybe she received like a return mail, and they'll be like, can you go ahead and just mail the voter this new address and see if they will voluntarily remove themselves from, the roll. And there'll probably be, like when she sends out notice, like a group of people get their mail forwarded or something, will be like, oh, I gotta update that, or something. Because I think a lot of people just
Forget, don't do.
they move, they register wherever, they don't realize that it's not this national database.
When you move to another state, it's not at the top of the list of going to update your driver's license and, that sort of thing. And so I know that they don't think about changing their voter registration either, so.
It's kind of like a car, when you sell your car, you're still gonna get notice that you're gonna have to pay your tag. You just gotta tell them you don't have the card anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
And one thing that the Secretary of State has made it easier for these people is they have created that website, which is VCR. Should be really easy to remember. Voter cancellation, anyways, they've created a website.
The acronym is easy, right?
Yeah, they've created a website that if you move out of state, you can go onto that website and you can cancel your voter registration from that website. You do have to go through certain steps and enter information to prove that it is you. But there was a form before that if someone called our office, we could mail it to them. We can still do that, but this will be a whole lot easier for anybody who moves out of state to go on and just, cancel it from the website. And I have had questions asked, like, how easy is it to do that? Can AI go on and cancel people's voter registration? They would have to have a lot of personal information for each individual. And plus, we, when they sign it, we look at their signature for their cancellation versus their signature for their voter registration. And that's another way that we compare the information before we cancel.
And there might be, depending on how much time, there might be information, like say someone brings a challenge and says, okay, well, this address is behind the Kroger or something, but you guys know, be like, well, isn't that where there's a big homeless camp or something? And you may decide we're not comfortable that that's enough evidence that someone wasn't actually living behind the Kroger as their residence.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes to your office and they register to vote, they moved here from, I don't know, some other state, then do you remind them that they have to go back to their state that they moved from and cancel their registration there?
I don't know what other states require them to do, so no,
Okay.
I did
Gotcha.
not. if somebody were to come in our office and tell us, hey, we're moving from Georgia to another state, we would tell them, well, while you're here, go ahead and fill out this cancellation form for your voter registration. And when we send out those NCOAs, it asks on there, have you moved? If you have moved within the state of Georgia and want to update your address, fill this portion out. But if you would like to cancel your voter registration because you've moved outside of the state or you no longer want to be registered, check this box, and then it has a place for them to sign it out to the side for their signature verification. So that's another way that they can cancel.
NCOA,
National Change of Address form.
there you go.
And that's sent out from the state. We love talking in acronyms.
And that's one of the ones, it's like the notice goes out, and if they don't respond,
They go on.
they go on, a clock, and then they go inactive, and then they roll off if there's no contact with them for two election cycles. And, and it probably, and I think one of the reasons they don't use that is like a definitive list is, sometimes people are moving temporarily, but you can still consider this your residence. Maybe you're leaving for a year to help your elderly mother, and you're going ahead and changing your address with the post office, but you're really not actually changing your address. So that's kind of why they do that. Have said that's not enough evidence because too many people, it's not like a definitive list of like, yes, these people have permanently,
Or you have a vacation home in another state, you spend part of your time there, but
this is still your residence.
your residence is here in Georgia, so.
We're never gonna keep up with all of it.
So anyway, does anyone have any other comments, questions, thoughts about the proposed voter challenge policy that we are looking to adopt? I know that, Karen, you have.
Yeah, so I didn't incorporate all of the changes. I just wanted to run through, like I know there was the thing in there, like Stacy attempting to call 3 times and stuff like that. I didn't want to hamstring her into this, like, if she has it, especially if it's really close to an election or a runoff or something, like an aspiration. I did leave out some of the suggestions that were in Fulton County's policy because some of those, particularly about what the board can do with change of residence, is being challenged in court. And it's like right now the Democrats believe one thing, the Republicans believe another. There's active federal court cases. And so I'm like, what? I don't know if we want that in until there is
Until there's a decision.
Yeah. I did add, like, there may be a point someone submits a challenge, and even though it's 90 days and they have individualized info, there's just no way, it's too close to the election for y'all to get together and look at it or anything, that you might have to set the hearing afterwards, but it's not gonna go back and affect someone's vote. So even if you decide we should have, this person should not be on the roll, if they've already voted, they've already voted.
So that was one of the questions I had, and maybe you already answered it, is that if that were the case, in your practice, have you seen, people just go, oh, well, they never heard this, I voted anyway, or, I'm just gonna withdraw the challenge, or have you seen hearings actually go forward after the election on a challenge? It seems sort of silly, but I get it. We got another election coming up in 2 more years.
Yes, I've seen challenges after the election, but it would go forward to the next one, essentially.
Okay.
And I really don't think that the percentage is high of like people that were removed, that they actually ever showed up for, like the chat, when the 230 where people get flagged in the system as chat, like the amount of people that actually show up to vote is tiny compared to how many people were challenged, because they really have moved. You know, and we've had some, and you know, they ended up signing the form or coming before the board. Like when he was a college student and he had changed his address, but you know, he was still allowed to use. We did actually have a homeless person. You know, and she came forward and she said, well, I was actually living, it's like a forest. She's like, I'm actually not sleeping there anymore. I'm sleeping now on this part of the county. And they changed her address to, you know, where she was sleeping then. But I would say probably 95% of people that challenge they're not voting, and a lot of them are already inactive, I think, because again, they probably, you know, maybe have moved or have died or something, but the updating of the rolls takes more time than I think what people would like.
And one thing that I think, a lot of these people who challenge in masses, they get a list of voters from the Secretary of State. And by the time that they do all of this work on these challenges, we're updating daily. I mean, we run into this. We had a voter call and say, we want to help you clean up the voter rolls. And I'm like, well, we work on that daily. So and I said, if you would like, I mean, they weren't challenging, but they said, you know, I said, if you'd like, you can compile the ones that you have concerns about on a spreadsheet and send it to me, and I will take into consideration and look at those and compare it to what we have. And a lot of it was people who had passed away that they knew personally, who we already had them off of our voter rolls by the time that they actually got the list from the state and went through. It was an old list at that point because it's always changing.
I think that's part of it, is the list is always changing. And so, like Forsyth had a hearing a couple weeks ago, and staff did have time to check, but and I forget what the percentage was, but there was a percentage that had already updated and had moved to their new county, so they weren't even actually on that roll anymore. They were now on Gwinnett or wherever they moved to. Just because by the time they get the list, they do their research, they submit it, and get, at that point, the person's changed and it's got their new driver's license or whatever, and it got changed.
And this voter lived in one of the gated communities that we have, so they had several people, you know, that they knew in their community that had moved out that was still on that list. But whenever I got to looking at the list that they had, it was from back in February. You know, here we were at that point, it was either June or July, so that list was, you know, several months old. But I told them, anytime you have something like that, just submit it to me, you know, in a spreadsheet. We'll go back and we'll check it with what we have. But I'm not going to cancel those voters necessarily just because, you know, you put it on that list. We'll do our research like we do with everything else, and we'll look and compare it to the information that we have.
And then if that person still wants to challenge, then they could, you know,
Then they have to follow our rules
bring
that we have under this policy.
And I think that's one thing too that Stacy can do, like in another county, someone put together a list where they thought there was where people were registered twice. And it ended up just being an issue when the switch to Jarvis occurred, where there were, you know, so by the time they got it, like they had tried to submit it for a voter challenge, but then staff was like, look, I think this is the Jarvis issue. Let me look through it first because I think these have gotten resolved by the time you got your list, and all but like 3 have been resolved already. So. Did you have? It's just the list is messy, messier than people like, and there's not a national list.
No.
So
So it's not.
this is what I
your
sent
book.
to her. This is what I sent in. This is what we got today from Stace with my notes written on it.
Okay. Because I was just going to point out, the title on this one, Pickens County Board of Voter Registrations and Elections, is backwards. for some reason. I don't know why.
Wait, did I put it backwards? Oh, sorry, that's me.
And then,
Put it
the,
backwards.
and then address, you address 230 before 229. Those are numerically reversed as well.
Wait, what'd you say, I'm sorry?
The detail on 220,
Yeah,
230 comes
oh,
before
okay.
I mean, we
229.
can do it, I wish they were reversed, just because the 230 is the easier one to process.
We can do that, though. You know.
But, because the 229 is the one that will actually remove
Completely. Where
completely.
the 230 only removes from that election, which is why I think you put it first.
And
And
two,
then-
I think flagging people makes them realize, then they'll let, oh, I gotta update.
Yeah.
And they may come off the roll anyway, or confirm, no, that is my actual address, or like, oh, I gotta switch to this other precinct. Cause
Yeah, I
I'm
understand
across
that
town,
part, but to
but,
my simple mind, it's.
yeah, I know,
backwards.
I wish it was the other way. But we can do that.
Yeah, if the board wants to change the order of that, we can do that.
Just the numbers and support.
Say what again?
As long as the number's correct, you're good, right?
Becky, did you have anything additional that you saw?
you're talking about in the first
Yeah, that
paragraph
was
that
me.
says Pickens County Board of Elections and voter registrations and
I
that,
reversed it.
yeah.
Everyone's different. I wish it was every county was the same and all.
I have a couple of issues. The first few paragraphs, you talk about Pickens County electors. And then the rest of the place, it says voters.
Yeah, do you have a preference? The statute says electors, but I know
But-
a lot of people don't.
If it's gonna say voters in one place and electors in another, it's gonna be confusing for
Yeah.
some people.
I mean, I prefer
If-
voters just because if we're gonna be handing this out to people, I think that is the term people are used to versus electors.
I
This be
mean,
on our webpage,
Yes,
so
but
voters might be.
yeah, elector is the word the statute uses,
I
and I
know,
think just a lot of people are like, what's that?
But if you're not quoting
Yeah,
the statute, I would,
I can make it all voter or all elector.
oh, vote, well, I'd say voters.
I prefer
Voter.
all voter.
Yeah, the only thing I suggest is if they, like Becky said, any point that we would be quoting the statute or listing the statute, we do exactly what the statute says. But then however the board would like to,
And under 230, paragraph 5, probable causes shall include but are not limited to. Assume but is not limited to. Sorry. That's the only thing.
that's why we paid the big bucks, Becky.
I actually even think that, I can't remember if I copied that.
I was just saying, if that comes right out of the code,
I
then
can't
you have to leave
remember
it
if I
as
copied and pasted it or if I,
Yeah, it's a good catch, but if the code says is, then we
I
have to
can't
say is.
remember, I have to double check.
It probably should say probable cause without the
I'm not
S.
surprised.
Yeah,
Right?
the code does say causes.
Yeah,
No, are not limited to.
Because I was like, causes. And I
yeah.
left that
If
one
you
in
just
the
double
code.
check, if it says is,
Yeah.
leave it as is, if it, okay.
Or
Alright.
I'll put quotations, if
Right.
people know that was the legislature.
It's 21-2-230B.
Is that the newest one then?
Oh, it's the last one
No,
they
this
gave
changed,
us.
It changed.
they changed, it changed July 1st.
Well, they haven't sent us a new.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still working on it.
All right, so as far as,
One more.
yeah, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So this is under 229, paragraph 3, where it's I think we need a definition of preponderance of the evidence, so I looked it up. And so that let's see, so I would change the second, if I could read my hand scratch, the Board of Elections will determine whether the challenger has demonstrated by a preponderance of the evidence, that the challenger has presented evidence that is credible and convincing. And then it says that standard is met if a reasonable and impartial mind, blah, blah. So it's just to add the definition of what a preponderance of the evidence is.
Okay, so at this time, we have two options. We can table this for one more review, or we can entertain a vote based on those suggested changes. And so I will leave it up to someone to make a motion.
Well, I would make a motion that we adopt the policy with the changes that we recommended tonight.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. And with the understanding that, we're gonna make sure that everything we just discussed is back in. And how do we do that? We make it green? I'm messing with you.
I can do a different color. Well, but these are in red, doesn't that
Right.
be blue?
Blue. There you go. Perfect.
Any additional discussion?
Yeah, no, good? Good, sure.
All those in favor that we adopt with the changes in red, blue, or green, whatever color, as long as those changes are made to this version.
It just helps keep up.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, carries 4-0. Thank you, and Karen, thank you for all the work on it. I feel like we want to get this on the website too, so, that way we have it, so.
Nobody's
Good work.
colorblind, are
Well, and I wish people, the off years are the perfect time for people to bring these and do their research or,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
definitely.
did see one thing from Secretary of State of one of the counties, I think it was Southtown, was already asking about how to do the subpoenas. So it's coming.
Yeah, unfortunately, we could be, so we want to be prepared, that's for sure, so. Okay, moving on to new business. Stacy, guessing you're ready to talk fast about your poll worker pay rates. If you have attended the training session, it was, I think, hinted at, there might be a request coming. So here we are, request in front of us now, so.
I didn't hear you say propose. I said, you guys are gonna get paid.
Because we are asking them to stay later to implement these changes that the SEB is having us do. I think it's only fair to fairly compensate them. I know compared to what they were making prior to the new board, I mean, it was pennies on the dollar. I still feel like for what they're doing, and as long as they're doing, I mean, if you average it out, I mean, they're not even making minimum wage being there for an election day. So I would like to ask the board to consider changing the pay scale. We're currently at $180 per day for managers, $150 for assistant managers, and $130 for all other poll workers. I would suggest that we increase managers to $200 a day, assistant managers to $175, and then all other poll workers to $150. It gives them a little bit more of a boost in pay. We also, need to consider in making this decision that a lot of these poll workers do not work in the precinct that they live in, and they don't get paid mileage to go to their precinct. Some of them, I'm asking to go completely across the county from where it is that they live, and they're not only are they driving in the morning, but they're driving at night too. So I think that this would help, compensate them a little bit more deservingly.
Is this for all elections, including early too, just to be clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this would be for all elections.
And you use that mileage form things that we filled out.
No, they don't get paid mileage.
I mean, if they were gonna get paid mileage, then you.
That, it's not in the policy for them to get paid mileage. They only get a flat rate.
Are you asking for them to get paid?
No, I'm just saying to consider the fact that they don't get paid mileage
Oh, okay.
into the decision of us increasing their
Oh,
daily
yeah,
rate.
okay.
And then I will say this is one thing that got brought up during training, and I'm not sure if it was the night that any of the board members were there, but one suggestion that the poll workers had was if we're gonna have to stay later, to do this, are you gonna feed us dinner?
That was not my night there, so.
So, it
I
might
don't
be
have a problem.
something that we consider maybe doing
Pizza.
pizza, whenever the board members are going out to pick up the memory cards, they can deliver pizza to those precincts.
No, we're not gonna let greasy fingers touch them.
Like,
So,
Why are all these ballots stuck together?
but I do think that there is a way to make that happen. I think that one of the questions, obviously, that we need to have an answer to is the overall budget, where we stand. If we could do not only the lunches like we've been, do the increase and pizza, like you're suggesting potentially, for that or something like.
Little Caesars and a $5 pizza.
We're
And deliver it.
Where do we sit budget wise overall with the county? Obviously, I want our poll workers to feel appreciated and to know how much we need them there for the job that they're doing. But I also know that we have a responsibility to try to stay within our
And
prescribed budget.
it
So
might not be something that we can do for this election if we don't have it in the budget, since we're already providing lunch, but it is something that we can factor in for future elections if this is gonna be something we're required to do. Because I don't think it was ever specified with this rule is if that has to be done for every election, including municipal, or if it is
the
just
counting of the ballot.
state and federal races that this has to be done.
I think it's all. Well, if you're using the scanning
The scanner.
machine.
So it would be something that we would definitely, if that's the case, that we would need to consider, in the budget for future elections. We know we're guaranteed 2 next year, possibly 3. That we would need to consider that.
So the pay raise for this election, along with the lunches like we've been doing, but look at dinner and budgeting for that for upcoming next year elections.
I think.
I'm just asking you.
We do. The board in 2021 decided to take a pay cut for what you get paid for your per diem for meetings. In order to be able to provide these poll workers, with a nice dinner, and we do that. I think maybe this year, because it is something that's so new, we could do lunch. I know a lot of the managers work with their other poll workers to decide who's bringing what to have snacks throughout the day.
Some of them
And
even
then
do
If
like
we have
crock pot
if we have
stuff.
the pay increase, that's already something they weren't expecting to get. Then we'll have the dinner beginning of next year, and it could be something that we look in putting on the agenda maybe in December to vote for to provide them some form of a dinner on election night, with it being even longer. I don't necessarily think it's something that we've got to vote on now, but it's just something to consider. That was one thing. And another thing that one of the poll workers asked is, if we have to be there the night before to help set up, why don't we get paid for that? And I told them that the setup the night before is just an extension of election day. I mean, at most, they're only there maybe an hour to set up tables, because there's not a whole lot they can do.
Right.
And I just cannot see justifying in the budget to pay someone $200 to go set up a couple tables. I just look at it like that's just an extension of election day.
So for clarity, you're asking us to potentially approve the suggested pay for what period? This election?
Yes.
Okay.
For this election. This would go into effect, and after you vote on it, it would go, I think it's 30 days. We have to approve the minutes. So we'll do that at our next meeting. And once you approve the minutes, it will be in effect. I will only have to send finance a copy of our minutes where you approved it.
So again,
But we wouldn't have turned in payroll yet.
Our next meeting will officially be election day,
okay.
because we will be calling a meeting as we did.
So it will.
It'll go into effect.
So if you
On
vote for it
election day.
tonight and approve it, it just has to be approved in the minutes at the next meeting, and I will not be submitting payroll until after that. So it will be, if you vote on it and then approve it, then I can submit it to finance, and it will be good to go for the November 5th election.
So there's no pressure tonight.
We don't have to get any action from the commission.
Take a deep breath, sit back, relax.
No, because we won't be asking for a budget amendment. We already have this built into our budget. So if it was something that we were having to ask for more money for this year for, we would have to get approval from the commissioners. It would have to be heard in front of them at one of their meetings. But because we already have this money in that line item, we wouldn't have to. And then going forward into next year, we will just plan this increase with our budget request.
So you've looked at your budget versus how much this is gonna cost extra?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you all have heard Stacy's proposal.
So I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I mean, I personally believe that every single person should be paid at least $10 an hour. And frankly, I calculated this, if it's 16 hours worth of work, and I completely forgot about the fact they go there the day before and set up. But anyway, so that makes a manager making $12.50 an hour. That seems okay, not great, but whatever. And I see I look at these comments that what people get paid in other counties, and then we do not pay enough. Okay, and then for assistant managers at the new rate, it would be $10.94 if they work 16 hours. But the worker bees, they're at $9.40. No, that's not right. I can't even. This is why I'm not counting those 50 pages. So anyway, 9.375 cents per hour. So I really think that the worker bees should get paid $10 an hour, and I know that would increase our budget. But if you've got it in there,
I will tell you this as another thing for food for thought is none of these poll workers do it for the money.
I know.
But I will tell you this, and it has been an ongoing issue. You have a lot of these poll workers that are retired, that are on fixed incomes, who can only make so much per year. If we're increasing this, then it could cause them to have to pay more in taxes, and we have lost poll workers in the past before because of that. We have had several come in and say that I can't work anymore because especially in a busy year like this where we have multiple elections, you're putting me over that threshold of the money that I can make without having to pay more taxes. So I'm just not going to be able to do it. So I've had a lot of them talk to me and talk to finance about trying to keep them under a certain amount. You got to think they do get paid for training. Before they never got paid for training. And I was just trying to come up with kind of a even number in increments of 20, 25 to go up to for a suggestion, but it's completely up to the board about what to go with.
Do you want to propose a bigger number?
well, I don't know however the other people feel about it. So if y'all think this is enough, but
I don't think it's enough. However, to Stacy's point, I think there's a fine line you have to walk. But to your point, they don't make enough money for the amount of time that they spend and what they do.
And it could be something that if the board wanted to approve this increase for this election, and then we could always revisit it next year
Exactly.
to increase more. I would be happy with that. The
I
more
think
I
that
can do
would
for
be-
the poll workers, in appreciation for them for what they do, the happier I'll be.
I think that
The taxpayers of the county are paying this, so, we gotta be careful with their money.
I think that since we can make these numbers work under the current budget without having to go in front of the commissioners at this point in time, again, they do a lot of work. It's going to be a longer day, and let's see how this goes too, and then maybe we can come up with a different figure for next year, but just to let them know
Yeah.
that we do appreciate them and we recognize that they've got more on their plates this year, especially with the November election and all the new rules. So I think that if we could at least give them this, that was a step in the right direction. We can go from there after that. So.
Yeah, and if you look, I mean, at the suggested scale, it's gonna average probably around 2250, for the poll workers. We've got 104 poll workers that's working this election. So, take that into consideration for what we've got left in our budget, because we've already had 2 elections this year. So I think that would probably be the best thing to consider, a smaller increase for this year, and we can revisit it next year.
Okay.
Well, kudos for actually considering, and presenting it, suggesting it. 'Cause it's a
Well,
step in
they
the right
deserve
direction.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
because we would not be able to do our job in the office if they weren't out there in the polling locations doing theirs.
100%.
Well, I
Okay.
move that we approve the suggested pay scale.
Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor? All right, carries 4-0. Thank you all, and good job, Stacy. Appreciate you looking out for all the staff, even the part-timers there, so it's good. Okay, hard drive storage. You guys are gonna love this one.
Oh, boy.
Oh, it's great.
What is this, hard drive?
Hard drive storage. So, Stacy will share with us what this exactly is, but basically it's in relation to one of the new SEB rules that was passed.
Come on.
There is a requirement under, and I don't remember which rule, so I apologize, that and she mentioned it earlier, the absentee vote box remain under camera 24/7, and then that film remains stored for 24 months.
Wow.
We need a way to store it. Stacy?
So Karen and I were discussing this. I'm gonna let her tell you about what the legislation says.
Yeah, well, and it's a rule, so it's supposed to be under video surveillance if how do they rule it? The Dropbox, once the polling location closes for the day, unless you lock the box or remove it to a secure area and then bring it back out the next morning, then you don't have to record it. But if you leave it and it's not locked, you have to record it and keep it for 2 months, or 24 months.
So our Dropbox is inside of our office. It's under video surveillance all day long while it's available to the public. Then when our doors are locked at the end of the day, no one else can access that Dropbox, but we still check it at the end of the day. We get any ballots out of it, that were put in that day. Then we lock it back, and then the next morning,
Do you continue recording?
yes. Well, I mean, it's underneath just our
24/7.
yes, but see, the video surveillance that we have in our office is we only have storage for 30 days. With this change and depending on what we do with the Dropbox, going into this election, we've always left it just in the same spot. We open it up, get the ballots out, we seal it back, and then the next morning we look in it, because you can see down at the bottom. We look in it, make sure that there's nothing in it, and we have to record all that on documentation. I don't think it's ever happened, but if we were to have cut the seal and resealed it, and somebody come in right at the last minute, right at 5 o'clock, or if we were in our office during advance voting and somebody knocked on the door right as we were locking the door and said, I need to drop this off, we would still let them, and then we would cut that seal the next morning, take that out and record, the reason why there was one in there. But with this change to this rule, if we are to keep the recordings for 24 months, the current surveillance system that we have is not the version that would allow us to do this. We would have to upgrade the licensing for it. We would have to get the hardware storage to keep it for 24 months. And I reached out to Astro, which is who we have our cameras with, and asked them to prepare me a quote, and that is what you have in front of you.
Can you, so if I'm understanding, we put the absentee ballot box out there at the front of the office at the start of early voting. If I'm understanding what Karen just said,
It
you
actually
can move
goes out
it.
before early voting.
Okay, if you can move it from that spot into another location
Well,
for the
it's
night, is that
the
what?
way they wrote the rule is you remove it to a secure area. And I don't know that people anymore have it in unsecured areas, because remember, like in 2020, it used to be outside and stuff like
Right.
that. Or lock it, because don't they have little, or some people get that thing that goes inside that physically shuts it. Yes.
And see,
Then you don't have to have it under video surveillance.
So, because I guess what I'm thinking, just thinking out loud, is we have the equipment room where the only person that has access to it is you and
Staff.
Staff, okay. So, does that count as secured or no? That, because like,
I mean, I think-
nobody else can get in it.
Yeah.
Nobody else can get in the office, but nobody else can get in that particular room in the office even. Does that qualify as secure?
I would think so. They didn't really define secure, but
Okay.
I think too, with changes in state law that have happened in the last 2 years, like you can't leave them outside anymore. They're supposed to be somewhere where staff can at least see them. And then generally, election offices, their lobbies aren't open at night, like,
Right. And that's it. I mean, dragging it in and out every day is probably not ideal. I'm just asking, is that what they're saying?
and
Because-
every county uses a different type of ballot box.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm
Dropbox.
thinking of, because I know there's some that, like, that you can actually, like, close and lock the part where you stick the ballot in.
Mhm.
A lot of
The
people
slot,
brought
yeah.
their ballot box that was outside, inside. We bought one that's on wheels, so it's easy, to move around. So, probably 159 counties have
Different, yeah.
probably 159 different kinds of ballot boxes. So that's just where I'm unclear about
But
what is
I
considered
mean, I
to
think
be.
getting it out of
Secured.
the way from a lobby or something like that.
the only thing we're being asked is to look at the video, increase the volume of the video so we
Yeah.
can store it, correct?
Yeah, if you opt to, I guess, leave it unlocked or whatever, then you do have to run the surveillance and you have to keep it for 24 months.
So what are you asking us, Stacey?
If what the board would like our office to do, because this is the price that it would cost us to leave it out and get the, everything necessary to record that, Dropbox for 24 hours, during the times of, from the time that we started sending out ballots and could receive ballots back to the very end of and I even had them go ahead and include an extra week, because there'd be that week where we would go into the audit. We're keeping that for 24 months.
Oh, is that what the 4 weeks is? External HDD for storage retention for 4 weeks?
Yes. So I started from the time that we could start receiving ballots in that Dropbox all the way up until after we completed the audit, because I figured if we're going to do it and keep it for 24 months, we might as well do the audit on that surveillance as well, to keep because I'm sure it might come up in an open records request.
And
at
is
some-
this just for this election or is this for any,
This would be for future elections.
okay, this election and future elections?
Because if we leave it out where we normally leave it, we would have to do this for every election.
It would cost $1,600 for every election?
No, it would, so the upgrade to the license, is because we have 3 cameras. So you can't upgrade just one license, we would have to bring all the licenses up to the same, upgrade. So we would have to pay for that, and then what they said is, with our current system, we are running the most basic version of the software called Core. It's necessary that the license be upgraded to Enterprise to be able to write encrypted video data on a separate hard drive. This upgrade will also offer tons of other features that you previously haven't had, such as creating license plates databases, tracking vehicles/people if you've banned with someone from the property, off-site cloud connectivity, and lots of other features that might be useful to us down the line.
And so this is a yearly cost too for the monitoring, or is that separate?
So right now, we would only be paying the amount to upgrade the license, for the hard drive, and then for the labor. The only other cost that I know that we would incur in the future would be if we needed more hard drive space. And then that would be labor for that as well.
So this is a one-time cost, right?
Yes, unless we needed more,
Unless you
hard
take
drive.
additional functionality. in
But
the
then
future.
again, after the 24 months, you would be erasing
Yes,
something.
yeah, we could erase that and then we would have that much more storage, so.
So how much does the hard drive cost?
The hard drive is the $535.48.
I mean, how much does the hard drive hold?
18
What does it-
terabytes,
Yes, and I can't tell you what that means.
a lot.
More than enough for your
How many elections would it hold?
Video, 18 terabytes is old.
24/7.
Does it say it for me?
Right there.
Is that what that is? Oh, 18, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It is, okay.
That gives you less than
For three
I do.
Are
I
the
do
current
video.
cameras compatible with it?
The current cameras are compatible with it, it's just the license that we have, so we have the basic package. We would just need to upgrade to a higher package in order to be able to do this.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a one-time shot and it would cover us for however long until the space runs out. And then we'd have to,
Well, after 24 months, we could delete that data that's on there and then we could replace it. You know, it would be constantly writing over each other.
so you're saying 18 through, okay. Yeah,
I'm not a video expert. I think the question would be asked, how much video time would actually be included in that 18 terabytes, so to make sure that over the 24 months, you have more than enough space to be able to load that amount of video. And another question, do we have this money in the budget?
We do. I was looking at the budget before I came and we still have $3,000 in technical services line item. And as of right now, you know, this wasn't a cost we were expecting, but I also don't foresee a whole lot coming out of that line item. And even if we do have, I don't believe I'm gonna be paying y'all $5,000 between now and the end of the year. So we have money. That's going to the poll worker. So we could move money out of that line item for office and administrative services into technical to cover that if we needed to.
Do we have the website covered asking for a friend?
Yes, that was already sectioned out of the budget for what we
In my bag.
already had planned on for the website. So
All right, if my Google research is correct,
Oh, did you already?
500 hours per 1 terabyte. So that'd be 9,000 hours of video, which is 375 days, but there's only however many out of each
Well,
election.
at the most, if
So-
we had 3 or 4 elections, I mean, you're looking at 90 days of storage per year. And
It sounds like it's worth enough.
And obviously, in getting the quote, you explained to him what you needed, why you
Yes.
needed, what it was 24/7.
yes, and I
And the
even
other-
told him when I was looking at the quote, I'm like, listen, you're gonna have to tell me, because I said they're more technical savvy than I am, and I said they're gonna have, questions. Can you kind of explain to me and email me what exactly it is we have, what it is this upgrade will allow us to do? So he was nice enough to do that along when he sent the quote.
Okay.
But I wanted to leave it up to the board because that's something that we could end up having open records down the road with. And I think it should be a board decision on whether or not we decide to spend that money for this, or if we just want to move the ballot box somewhere else. I mean,
But if we were to get this, approve this, then that would alleviate you guys having to do anything. It would just be under video surveillance,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you wouldn't have to go out, you wouldn't have to move it in. I mean, your
Yeah.
$100 an hour pay rate that you get, that time over time could really rack up, So money saved.
Exactly,
Oh
exactly. So,
So I just have one question about it, and it's not about this, because I think we should do this, but,
Absolutely.
and what I know is what I've read in the paper, is this whole business of that we have to, keep the SD cards for each of the scanners for 24 months. Did that pass, or that's gone by
That got
the
tabled.
wayside?
That got tabled.
Perfect, because I saw a lot of
We do
discussion
have-
about how expensive
Yeah.
that was gonna be.
we do have to keep them
At least
without
one, right?
without reusing them for 30 days. So after an election, we can't use those
For
SD
30
cards for
days.
30 days.
Okay.
But after that, and that's in
Transfer the
legislation.
info, yeah.
But with the SEB rule that they wanted us to keep it for 24 months, they tabled that because they're not sure. They're hoping to get funding from the state next year in the budget that would cover that cost so the counties wouldn't have to incur it.
Okay.
But it's kind of just, sitting there.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about what kind somebody would buy. Dominion obviously wants you to use theirs. And there was no uniformity in anything. They had not enough information to make it be a set across the board rule, so it got tabled.
Good, I just wanted to make sure we wouldn't have another expense this year.
How long would it take them to install this today?
They're normally pretty quick, and for any of the board members who don't know, we inherited this surveillance system, this camera system, and it's very good. The people that install at Astro, they're the same company who installed the cameras down at State Farm Arena, so they're not just a small business. My representative that I call, with questions, any problems, he just lives in Waleska, so he's not that far away if he needs to come and work on something. So they were really quick at getting to us when we moved locations and moving our cameras to the new office. If I call them tomorrow and tell them, hey, we need to do this, they'll probably order the hard drive, and as soon as they have it in, do the installation of it. So I figure within, a week or two.
I move that we accept this quotation and authorize Stacy to proceed with the job.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries 4-0, thank you. All right, now we know we're extra secure, and we like that. So, okay, next item, staff comments. Go ahead, it's yours.
Here it comes.
No,
Should get a drink of water for that.
Wait a minute, is she gonna tell us she resigned? Somebody stop the
I'm
meeting.
I'm taking my vacation.
I've got to where I talk more during these meetings than I ever anticipated talking. So by the time I leave, my throat is dry and scratchy and I can barely talk. Especially after doing 3 days of poll worker training last week. So that is why the water is necessary. Our staff is getting ready for the upcoming election. Our office was closed for half a day on Thursday and on Friday with anticipation of the hurricane that was coming. Thank the Lord that it, curved more to the east and we were not hit hard, but please do remember all of the families in our state and in the surrounding states that were affected by it. My heart goes out to all of them.
What are the people that did have, like in Valdosta and Savannah and those areas, have you heard anything about how their voting was affected?
No, ma'am, I have not. That will be up to the state, I guess, to decide on how to handle that.
Haven't heard anything about it.
I won't say it hasn't crossed my mind with what a big election this is coming up. People in other states that there's not roads to get out. There's no electricity. There's towns where people's homes have completely been destroyed. Not to mention there's no polling locations. So I don't know how they're going to go about handling that. In our office we were just discussing possibly electronic ballot delivery like they do for UACAVA. It would be an emergency situation, but then you've got people that are without power and people that don't have cell phones, could have been washed away or lost it. I don't know how they're going to handle this. And like I said, my heart goes out to them because I'm sure that's the last thing that any of them are thinking about right now. But with our office being closed, it did put us behind in what we were trying to get ready to do by the end of last week for us to go into this week. So we're working like crazy. We're worker bees. All of us are all hands on deck because Monday is the first day that we can send out absentee ballots. So we're all working on that this week. We start LNA testing next week. I have managers training next week. So next week is going to be a super busy week for us for our office. The state had us do a dress rehearsal. We started it last week, but because of being closed, we finished it up this week for our election night reporting to make sure that everything uploads into the state system the way that it should. So we've been working on that yesterday and today. Let's see, what else do we got coming up next week? Next week's going to be a busy week.
Yeah.
We might just spend the night because I think we've already started working our longer hours. In the last 2 weeks, there's been quite a few 12+ hour days. But that happens this time of year, so that's what we're gearing up and getting ready for. I'll look today before the meeting, and I know some of the board members had some questions and wanted some updates on registered voters. As of today, and it will change tomorrow because we can take registration all the way up until Monday, but we have 29,000 registered voters in Pickens County. 25,851 of those voters are active. 3,149 of those voters are inactive. The only thing that they have to do to make themselves active is either go on and update online and update their voter registration, or show up to vote, and that will make them active. We have are currently preparing for 668 absentee by mail applications. 47 of those are UACAVA and have already been sent out. They were sent out as of September the 17th, and then going forward. We've had 4 of those returned, but the rest of that 620 something will be sent out on Monday, and then anything that we get in from Monday forward, we will start getting out after that. So that's one reason that we'll have all staff working on that this week, getting everything, in the ballot envelopes ready to, all we have to do is put postage on it on Monday and then get it to the post office. One of the things that we will be doing, for this election that we did back in May, and I think it really helped, was all of the ballots that stay here locally, we'll take inside the post office and ask the postmaster to keep those here and not send them down to Atlanta or Palmetto. And I think that really helped with the May election, and voters getting their applications, in the mail, or their ballots in the mail, in plenty of time to feel like they get it back to us whenever, they're not waiting on it for long periods of time. Now, the ones that will be going, out of our county, we still have to follow the process, and it has to go through the mail system. And we've told voters that have came in or that have called, that have, concerns with the mail, if it is, if you have the ability to bring it back in person and drop it in after you get it, that way you know when it's been dropped off and that it's here. So that's something that we have suggested to them. We did hold training 3 days last week. We will have a makeup training for anyone who was not able to attend. We have not set a date for that yet because we're still trying to reach everyone who was not able to make it to the other trainings about their availability before we set a date completely. But looking forward into this election, we have around 104 poll workers for this election. So that's better than we have ever been for any election that I have participated in. We normally set well at about 75. So I think having those extra poll workers at the polls is really going to help if we do have to count the pieces of paper on election night, because you're going to have extra people helping out to get things done where we normally not had all those extra helpers. So going into that, like I said, we're getting ready for LNA testing next week. We plan on sending out, we normally do 8
LNA?
logic and accuracy. As we'll test all of the equipment.
I'm gonna call her out every time.
That will be
I'm
used
gonna
for the
figure 'em out.
election. We are going to, we normally send 8 machines to early voting. We're sending 10 this time. So we're sending as many machines as we possibly can, because we know that the lines are gonna be long. We know we have a lot more voters that vote at early voting than on election day. So we're preparing for that. We've been working with the rec center about getting everything ready for us to go over and move into their location. They've been wonderful at helping us. We've been working with our public works guys who are the ones that transport our equipment, getting that scheduled. We really couldn't do our job without the help of them as well. And they've just been a whole lot of help doing our job, because the way that, we started out to where, and we've talked about this with the board, but to where we are now working with the other departments, all of us coming together to help us do elections. I just can't thank them enough. And I know during our department head meeting last week, Chris told all the department heads that if I call them and I need something to please not hesitate, because it's getting our busy season. So, but they're all willing, to help with whatever necessary. He said that they might even have to have department heads help count these ballots at the end. Jokingly, but I appreciate their willingness to help us in any way possible. But we will start conducting the testing on all of the equipment, starting with early voting. We did have the legislation that was passed that will let us take into consideration how many people vote at early vote versus our needs for how many machines to send out to each precinct. Even though we can take that into consideration, I'm not sending any more to the precincts for election day than normal, but I am sending everything we have to those precincts, even though we're adding the extra equipment for early voting. So I think that will help cut down on the lines as well.
10 is about the max I think you can fit in that
Well,
ramp,
to-
correct?
For
early vote,
yes,
yeah.
and we won't do any more than 10. We will have a designated poll pad check-in and a designated BMD just for the elderly and disabled to keep them from having to wait on a BMD and also to keep the line of voters for all other 9 BMDs flowing. So, I think that will help as well to get the elderly and disabled voters in and out and then not have to wait. Because before in previous elections, we moved them to the line, but they still kind of had to stand there and wait until the line was open for the next person. And this will allow us to have a separate line just for them, which I think will help get them in and out and they won't have to wait as long. So, I've been working with Jeannie. I drew out the layout for her of what early voting, the precinct looks like. We have pictures from previous elections that we've went over. Her and I are gonna go over one day before the equipment gets delivered for early voting to kind of let her just get a feel for the room and me show her where everything is gonna be set up before we go into it. And I've said this during poll worker training, I have all the confidence in her in the world, to run this Monday through Friday for early voting. And Kay will be the manager on Saturdays. We have a good support staff of poll workers that are going to be there to help Jeannie out. We're going to do 9 poll workers at early voting every day. I've kind of mapped out a couple extra positions that we haven't had to have in the past, but because this election is so big and there's going to be so many people, I think we need the extra poll workers, plus we'll have the board members help relieve those poll workers for their lunch breaks. So I think it's all coming together, and it's just we're getting down to the wire. I think with working elections, and it could be from working in the newspaper business prior, I'm running on adrenaline. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I like those deadlines. So we're getting close. Everything's coming together in our office. We're still following all of these changes, and we'll continue to do that. And we'll do whatever necessary in our office. We'll follow the law and do what's necessary for us to get the job done. Some of my counterparts have said that whether it's the state election board or it's the Secretary of State, they put unrealistic expectations on us as election officials, and somehow we always seem to accomplish those, and therefore we're our own worst enemy because it just opens us up for them to put even more unrealistic expectations on us. With all the new changes, I know I've had board members that have asked me questions about, how are you going to implement all of these new changes coming into this next election. We'll get it done. We're working on it. A lot of it is in my head. So I'm, staff and I are talking it through, what we're gonna do with these changes. Some of the questions I've had is about with the new legislation that's requiring us to report by 8 o'clock early voting and absentee by mail up until election day. How is that going to look? I'm not going to be able to give the board a definite answer on a time. We will early tabulate, which means we will be sequestering. We will start opening absentees up, but until about the second week into early voting, when I know more of how many absentees have been returned, I'm not going to know an exact time. I'm looking at somewhere between 5 and 6 to start opening absentee by mail. Probably around the same time is when we're also going to start early tabulating, which is when we're going to be able to get the information off of the scanner for early voting. So that's around what we're looking at, but it's not set in stone yet. And all of that will have to be decided at least by that second week, because I have to run the advertising to let the public know that we will be doing that. I'll have to have my panel members already selected and signed off on by the Superior Court judge, and then I will have to give notice to those panel members that will be sequestered in our office So that's what we're looking at. I can't give any more information as of right now, but I will reach out to you by email and let you know that information once I have narrowed it all down.
As well as the assignments for the precincts and who's gonna pick up what cards and
Yes.
everything that will all be forthcoming
Yeah, I
as you
will-
get it.
I will be
Figured
working
out.
on before early voting starts. I'll be sending out a schedule for lunch coverage. So if you have your dates of availability, if you want to go ahead and email that to me so I can start building that schedule. And then also I will be sending you out information about election night, job duties for board members. I'll send you out information about calling the meeting to order on election day. And then I will also send you out information reminding you about the pre-certification meeting. And then I think it would be safe to say to probably go ahead and expect to do the certification meeting that following week with UACABA coming in all the way up until 5 o'clock. We can do our pre-certification on Friday and then on Tuesday do our certification meeting.
So write it on your calendars, please.
Yeah, so the pre-certification would be the Friday after
At
the
3
election.
o'clock.
Yep, that's written in. We have to do
Yes, we
that.
have to do that no later than 3 o'clock.
No, yep.
So is that the time, 3 p.m.?
Well,
No later than,
no,
Right,
doesn't
so-
have to be.
Friday,
yeah, Friday, it would be November 8th
3 p.m., right?
at 3 p.m.
And then also, for any board members that are going to participate in the audit is the 14th.
November 14th?
And also, I have to certify the election on the 12th.
Because we do a
Tuesday.
pre-certification and then we'll do a certification meeting.
Will it be in the morning?
Well, we don't know yet. We haven't set a time for that.
Okay, well, I've got it on my calendar.
Monday is a holiday, which is why we're not certifying on Monday,
Okay.
so that we can move it to Tuesday.
Yeah, so and the 14th is the audit.
The audit, yes.
Got it.
We don't know the time yet on Tuesday.
The board hasn't set that yet,
What, I'm sorry.
for certification.
For certification, I would assume because we will be not having any regular business that I know of at that point in time, we could probably do like a 5 or 6 o'clock meeting. If we had other business, we would carry it in, but if we want to do it earlier in the day, I mean,
And I know
depending
Terry's got some travel dates.
I've already told my friend we're not coming.
And what is the certification date?
The 12th.
the
Tuesday
12th.
the 12th.
Yeah, because Monday is the holiday, so. So Tuesday the 12th. But we haven't set a time yet. Just like we haven't set a time for when we are actually gonna call the meeting on election day. But again, because of the fact that we will all be in and out of the office, we will need to make sure that we call the meeting. And with the fact that we will be canvassing earlier in the day and who might have to be involved in that, we might call the meeting as early as like 9 o'clock on that Tuesday morning or something.
We just have to make sure, because these are all special call meetings, that we just notify the public and the media 24 hours in advance of what time we are calling these meetings. Right.
So we're basically, we were gonna talk about that and kind of see how the day was gonna, I don't wanna do it first thing in the morning because everybody usually goes out, checks on their precincts, that sort of thing. Would it be best if like when we came to the office at 11 o'clock and everybody was getting their lunches, something like that maybe would be the best time to go ahead and call the meeting to order with the board on election day. So I'm still tossing around a couple ideas of Stacy about what time would work best and be convenient, where we're not also interfering with the work that they're trying to do during the day too, because their phones are ringing off the hook and they're calling for numbers and so.
And we have to consider the fact too, with board members coming in and out of the office throughout the day, if we get more than 3 there, at a time, and they're doing election work, that's in violation of the sunshine laws without that meeting being called.
Yeah. So that's why we're trying to decide what time would work best, but we will call a meeting on election day, then we will obviously give the 24-hour notice. We just haven't set a time for that one
I
either.
think that the best course of action would probably be to have board members meet a little bit before y'all normally pick lunches up. Go ahead and call the meeting when everybody gets there at one time, and then we're covered for the rest of the day.
So that's our working plan, but we have not nailed it down. So, yeah. All right, any other comments? You
I have
feel
a
good?
question. Do y'all have a generator at your office? Okay, very good.
We had one at our
That's
old
excellent news.
location, and then we have one at our new location.
Great.
Let's just hope we don't need each individual
Well-
precinct, because Lord knows we won't have those there. So, anyway, all right, well, it sounds like the staff has been very busy, and that's an understatement, but thank you for all the hard work and everything that you're doing. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Al? Mary? Anyone? Okay, we'll move on to board comments then, and I'm gonna start down here with Ed. If you wanna go ahead, any comments?
Well, I think mostly, Karen talked about the action that's going on in Fulton County in front of Judge McAfee. And there's a second action in federal court that was filed by some members of the GOP that has to do with, against the Secretary of State violating the National Voting Rights Act. I'm not sure in great detail what that is. This was just announced Saturday, so
Okay.
it was probably filed Friday. I assume in the Northern District of Georgia. So that's all I really know about that. I haven't. You're welcome to look at my copy of the. This is just a news release. It's not anything in great detail, but just so about that one too. And we've already talked about the one in Fulton County by the DeKalb County head, only because she is a computer expert. It really has to do with the whole state, not just DeKalb County. It's
Gotcha.
filed in Fulton. All that's confusing, but
Right.
that's how it had to be.
Well, it'll be interesting because obviously we have to go by whatever happens with that, and I don't know how that's ever gonna get done in time for this election, so.
Right.
I
I've
don't
worked in
know.
the court system a long time.
Yeah, it take a little while, isn't it?
Yes,
If
it is.
anything happens too, it'll get appealed and they'll ask for a stay.
Right, yeah,
So,
yeah. So, we're gonna, hope that nothing interferes with us being able to carry out this election of that nature, and we'll just have to see what happens, I guess, with all the litigation that is going on, because it's even going on against some of the SEB rules. It seems like everybody's ready to at least stand their ground, I think, and see what
even
happens.
after the election, it keep on going
That's
for years.
That's right. It's never ending cycle, so. All right, Terry, any comments?
Just to thank you guys again. I mean, you guys are really under the gun and we appreciate it so much. And I know that the citizens of this county don't have any idea of what you guys do every day. And, but we appreciate it very much. I feel like we're so lucky to have you guys, you Stacy as the leader and the rest of your team.
Thank you.
And Karen as our lawyer.
Yeah. Rick?
Oh, I echo exactly what Terry said, so appreciate everything that y'all are doing. This is gonna be an interesting, next 30 days, to say the least.
Let's hope for no runoff too.
And one last thing, have you decided, are we gonna decide anything for food for the poll workers that evening? You said pizza, but she said no grease.
Well, I think we're gonna let the poll managers
Okay.
decide that for the polling locations amongst poll workers for this election. And it's something going in to future elections that we'll look at, trying to provide them with something.
I did ask Stacy, was it a violation for the Board of Elections to take food to the precincts that we worked at, and it's okay, correct?
Well, not the Board of Elections.
I'm sorry.
So if you as a board member are delivering it, that's the same as delivering the lunches, but we can't take any outside from an individual or organization or a church. We can't accept that, so.
Becky?
Whatever y'all said.
And I would just like to say, I had hoped we weren't gonna marathon meeting it, but I promise we're gonna get this under control, people. It's just this time of year and a lot of things that we need to do. So I do applaud everyone, including the board members, for sticking through all of this and look forward to shorter meetings in the very near future, I'm sure.
This will be our last regular scheduled meeting before the election. And if we have a meeting in December, I don't foresee it being as lengthy. So this might be, I don't wanna say that and then
Don't jinx
eat
it.
my words, but
Yeah.
this might be the last marathon meeting that we have for a while.
Right. But I do appreciate everyone and all the hard work, especially Stacy and staff and Karen and Mary. Thank you for sitting out. Bless you.
Yes.
We appreciate you sitting through all this too. But on that note, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
And
All
I
those in
failed to
favor?
thank all of you
Oh.
after my comments, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for what you did.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.